Welcome back to r/NeighborsFromH, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Wisconsin, my landlord and neighbor are accusing my dog of biting them, will not provide proof or file reports. Can I be evicted over this? So, Wednesday the 22nd, my dog did in fact jump on my neighbor as she approached him while my father and dog were entering our apartment. Why she felt the need to get between them, I don't know. She was clearly startled, but there was no visible damage. I should add, I don't have a good history with this neighbor. She broke in my first day of living here to use my oven, and it has been hell ever since. I worked with a previous tenant of this building and she has horror stories. Anyway, about an hour later my landlord walked into my apartment unannounced and started screaming at the top of his lungs. When I came out to see what the hell was going on, he was frantic, twitchy and hysteric. His pupils were also dilated, if that tells us anything. He claimed my dog, that I'm allowed to have and is on my lease by the way, bit the neighbor and himself well over a week ago. I asked him almost 4 times why he did not report it to the police or myself for that matter, and his answer was, "It doesn't matter," and "I'm a nice guy." During this insane conversation, he would come up a step or two. I was at the middle of a staircase, he was near the bottom, and he would roll up his sleeves. This man is much larger than me and I started to become very afraid. He told me I had 24 hours to remove my dog or else. I asked what that meant. He said, "I'm trying to save the dog's life." He also threatened animal control. Now, the steps I have taken since this occurred, I work at a humane society for this county. Us combined with the local police department are animal control. My dog has no previous bite history, he is current on rabies. If this bite even occurred, he would have to do a 10-day quarantine in my home and that would be the end of it. I know that legally my landlord cannot have my dog put down, however, after breaking and entering into my apartment, I don't believe my landlord is concerned with the law anymore. His wife is also my landlord, but she is just as difficult as he is. They have a huge reputation in this town, but I figured if we paid out rent on time and did not bother them, then they would leave us alone. I contacted the police and made a report of everything that happened and made sure they would not be taking my dog from me just in case. They will not without a report and history of my dog biting, which there is none. I contacted Tenant Resource Center in Madison, the Department of Agriculture, the city clerk to make sure I didn't break any city ordinances, and a law firm should I need a lawyer down the road, though they have yet to get back to me with the holidays and whatnot. The Tenant Resource Center had me write a letter to my landlords, the short version of the letter in that I outlined the evidence I was given for these supposed bites was only my landlord telling me they happened. No proof and no reports, therefore I would not be removing my dog from my home. I let them know they have until December 28th to reply to me via email or mail and gave them that information. I also sent the letter certified mail so they cannot claim that they didn't get it. Anyway, sorry I am droning on. My main question is, can I be evicted for this? Every bump in the night I run for the door and make sure he is not breaking in again. When I have to be away from home for work, I am terrified and constantly check in with my father and fiancé. I will not be attending family Christmas because I am too scared to leave my dog here alone. I don't normally have anxiety, but I am petrified of the retaliation to come of this. At the same time, I am livid and I am sick of this husband and wife landlord team terrorizing my town. I cannot find a single soul that rented from them that had a good experience. They break the law and they blackmail their tenants. If anyone has any advice for me, I would love to hear it. I'm sure I've missed some details as well, so any questions, just ask. Thanks so much for taking the time to read. Happy holidays. And a user in the comments said, without a police report or hospital treatment records, the whole thing would be hearsay and any court would likely throw it all out. Also, the combination of what your landlord has done would allow you to break lease in a heartbeat in most places. He cannot just walk into your apartment, and doing so combined with him yelling at you is likely enough for you to call the police to start a paper trail for a probably easy to obtain protection order against him. Call the police, tell them what happened, get a report made up. Don't worry about the dog stuff if you are not served. And another user said, it's not like he would automatically win an attempt at eviction. If he takes you to court, you can fight it and challenge his lack of evidence. And by the way guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments and maybe even like the video if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance. Update to the landlord's story. So last night a police officer came to my door. He told me that my landlord had gone to the station and demanded that they remove my dog from the property for biting. That's not how the law works in my city. If a dog bites and it breaks skin, the dog must be placed under a 10-day rabies quarantine. That can be done in your own home if your dog is current on their rabies vaccine. If not, the dog must be quarantined at the animal shelter, which is actually where I work. If the dog bites again, it must leave the city. My landlord was clearly not aware of the law when he made his illegal threats to me. Fortunately I was. Anyway, the police officer told him that if he wanted them to act, he and my neighbor needed to file reports. They asked him to show where my dog bit him. He told them he had no marks because he was wearing gloves. Convenient lie for something that never happened. The police dismissed him on that claim. Then he told them my neighbor had bites that broke skin. They informed him that he would need to go to the hospital and provide the proof, and a doctor would have to verify that these marks were indeed a dog bite. At the time the cop came to my house, she had not even left for the hospital yet. He seemed to find something fishy himself about that. He also knew her from her constant drama and run-ins with the cops, as did the other two officers a week ago. They seem very fed up with this woman. 3 hours later the officer calls me to inform me that there was a small bruise that the doctor said could or could not actually be a dog nip. No, broken skin. The second I got off the phone with him, I couldn't stop laughing. This was on her stomach too, when my dog jumped on her for attempting to enter our home and stepping in front of my father. She turned before he reached her. His paws, not mouth, landed on her back. Both my father and I saw this. My landlord also lied to me and told me my dog had broken her skin when he was screaming in my face. So that is that, and my dog will have no record, especially because they agree with me that she provoked the incident. They did not even tell me to be more careful in the future or anything, because I did my job and I followed the law. He did jump on her and she has every right to be scared, but not to lie. The police take into account what a person does to provoke a dog into a defensive attack, and they seem to believe he was indeed provoked, but regardless, that is behind me. I still fear what is to come though. He took the letter to the police. They saw it with their eyes. I have proof of his retaliation after I did not succumb to his threat. I will be in contact with a lawyer about terminating my lease. I also believe they may try to evict me as well. That would definitely fall under the landlord retaliation law. My dog will also be muzzled outside while I live here, not because I think he's actually going to bite people. He's a giant. If he wanted to bite, he would be biting, but because I am arming myself from future lies. It is comfortable and he can eat, drink and pant with it on. This is not over yet, but I'm pretty sure I have won this one. And guys, unfortunately there were no further official public updates on Reddit, but I did some further research, and as it turned out, the OP did successfully terminate the lease and got out of there, but there was no sort of satisfying revenge or whatever you might really call it. I think in the end, from what I read, it seemed like OP was really glad that he got out of there and does not have to deal with the insane landlord anymore. And the next one is titled, "Live in a rental for over a year without paying rent? Good luck in jail." This has all been finalized, so I decided to post it. For obvious reasons, I didn't want to post it while it was ongoing. Last summer I bought a house trailer and decided to rent it out. It needed some work, so I posted 2 months free rent for putting carpet down in the living room, hooking up the hot water heater and putting in a toilet. got a nice couple with a newborn willing to do it. Great, no lease month to month, no security deposit, and the rent was $450 a month. So they did the work, so I didn't ask for rent for 2 months, everything was fine. Side note, there are few little state laws that come into play. If you don't pay rent for 3 consecutive months, you are considered a squatter, which means the landlord does not have to fix the property and can actually padlock it and deny you entry. If you are on house arrest and get formally evicted, you could be violated for it. Also, you can be formally evicted even if you have already moved out, so the landlord can get rent due. Also, even though there are eviction bans, if it happened before the ban, then it can still go through. Plus a few other conditions that still allow someone to be evicted, it is up to the judge really. Fast forward 5 months and still no rent money. Yes, they had a newborn and they were young and didn't have a lot of money, but the husband can spend $1,500 on a new engine for his project car. They can afford to go out to eat and spend money on electronics, but no rent. So after that 3rd month I did nothing. The weather was turning cold, I didn't put in the furnace like I promised, and if they hadn't had a newborn I would have padlocked the house. They were bragging about their tax fraud. I gave them a shot to catch up and they basically said that they knew their rights and were in a rent strike, illegally I might add, you will see later. Then the pandemic happened, husband got laid off, so I gave them a break. When he went back to work I asked for back rent again and was told to F off. I finally had enough. I told them they had 14 days to get out or I was doing a formal eviction, and seeing he was on house arrest he knew what that meant. I honestly was trying to keep him from having to go back to jail and keep an eviction off of their record. I was trying to be nice and civil. So they left and I cut my losses until I checked the property. Everything they put in, they removed. Everything they got free rent for was gone. I got pissed and filed for a formal eviction. It did not go as they hoped. They said I didn't provide heat, so they went on a rent strike, only they didn't file that with the courts or hold the money aside, they just thought they could stop paying rent. What they put into the trailer was less than the rent. The judge agreed with me that seeing they took everything, I was due those 2 months rent and the biggest. He started slamming my character, so I said, well, you didn't tell me you were going to be going on house arrest when you rented the property before. Then the judge looked bored, but he now perked up. He asked them if that was true, they responded that it was, and he was ready to make his ruling. I received 15 months back rent at $450 a month and $2,000 in damages because the way they removed the stuff, they damaged a lot of things. As for him, the judge said he had no choice but to turn the eviction over to his parole officer. Fast forward to this month, his house arrest was violated and he was arrested. They actually had the nerve to ask me to speak on his behalf. I didn't. Ruling was his remaining 6 months are now being spent in jail. They have a bad eviction on their record and they owe me money. Know the law before you play the game. Update, I forgot to add that social media blasted me like I was the scum of the earth. Yup guys, and certainly social media at times can be extremely vicious. And actually one thing I'm really curious about, how many people in the comments are landlords? Do you have any interesting stories to share about crazy tenants? If you wish, you could post them either in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit. Thank you very much in advance. And the next one is titled, Teaching a Property Officer in a Bank a Lesson in Humility. This happened back in 2012. One of my co-workers fell in love with a ginormous house. 7,000 square feet, 7 bathrooms and 7 bedrooms. 2 full kitchens sitting on 2 acres and the backside butted up against federal land. Which means it could never ever be built on. So his view could never be compromised. In 2008, this property was carried on the tax rolls for $980,000. Then the economy went into a tailspin. The builder, a residential construction company owner, found himself overextended. With the acute slowdown in home building, he could not meet the note on the property, so the bank ended up with it. Fast forward 4 years, the bank had been marketing it the whole time and found no takers, so by 2012 it was make an offer. So my coworker went to the bank with an offer of $325,000 contingent on him selling his current home. The bank's property officer literally laughed in his face, told him that it's worth at least $600K and not a penny less. That the bank would rather let it crumble into dust before accepting his $325K offer. Without going into a lot of detail here, it turns out that events happened about this time. The bank found itself having to move over 200 homes and businesses within 60 days because they suddenly needed some cash. If you're thinking fraud and embezzlement, you would be correct. So they hired a company to auction off the properties in our state's capital, which was a bit odd as it is 250 miles away, but I guess they rolled it into another auction they had already scheduled. It was a no reserve price auction. You could start with a bid of $1. So he and I went up there. We knew his house was up for auction and he had lined up his financing. From another bank, by the way. Why give them any interest if this worked? And sure enough, it came up and there were only 2 people bidding on it. And the second guy dropped out at $295,000, so my buddy bought it for $295,000 and $500. Sweet. The property officer was there watching all this. The look on his face was priceless. When it was all said and done, my friend sent a nice letter and a fruit basket to the bank's executive board, thanking them for the $30,000 reduction in price that they had given him. PS, he just sold it a couple of months ago because now he's an empty nester. Got $475K for it. So he made about $180K for living in it 5 years. Thank you, bank. And the last one is titled, Guy parks in my parking space, so I block him in for about 3 hours. So let me lay the scene out for you. This happened about a year back late in the evening. I was hanging out at my cousin's place and I had to head home to feed my dogs. Let me explain our parking. Since I had taken the car out, there's a property next to our house that belongs to my father's brother. There is nothing constructed on it, but there's like 5 truckloads of dirt and mud with enough space by the road for a couple of cars, and that is where we always park both our vehicles. So as I reach home, I see an unknown vehicle parked in my space and I was visibly annoyed because this happens every time. Either someone parks in our space or double parks and blocks us in. So I decided to serve some petty revenge. I carefully parked my car in such a way that I was blocking him in and at the same time not blocking him. There was enough space that if he wiggled his car back and forth enough, he would be able to get out without damaging any vehicles parked there. After that was done, I headed home, served the dogs and headed for a shower. Now I take long showers and I had to dress up because I was heading back to my cousin's place, so it was about 2.5 hours after I was done with everything. I head back down and get on my bike ready to leave when I see someone trying to flag me down. I head over to see a guy, maybe in his late 20s, asking me if that is my car. I ask him which one, the one that is blocked or the one doing the blocking. He gets annoyed and points to my car, to which I confirm that it is my car. He demands that I move it immediately as he was getting late for something, I don't remember what. I then asked him whether this was his property and if he was allowed to park there. He said that he knew the people who stayed in that house and that they gave him permission to park there. The idiot was pointing at my house and I know for a fact that nobody gave him permission to park there. I had the biggest grin on my face when I told him that the house he was pointing at was my house, this was my property and he didn't have any permission to park there. His face lost all expression and he was visibly flustered. He then continued to demand that I move my vehicle so that he could leave. I just told him that he should have thought about that before parking on private property. I then got on my bike and left. His face looked like as if someone told him no for the first time. It was priceless. I returned home a few hours later to find that he and his car were gone. I went to check if he had damaged my car, but he surprisingly left without any damages on the car. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.